Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be talking about tenant settings in Power BI. Now, I tell you, there are days. So have you ever started a project and then you kind of lose track of it, and then at some later point in time you kind of find it again? That's what kind of happened to me. So in a recent video, I was going through how to get tenant settings out of Power BI using the PowerShell and the REST API. And I had thought that'd make a good video to extract that information, create a report on it. So I started on that path. And I got to a point where I was going to save the file, and then realized, oh, there's another file out here from a month ago that says that's called tenant settings. Huh, I wonder what that looks like. And it's the report we're going to show today because I was a lot further along with it than the one that I was working on. So anyway, so Power BI REST API, right? You can get tenant settings, this is the URL path to get the tenant settings from the REST API. One of the things I wanted to try was, it's a JSON document that comes back from it. Can I do a JSON document web.contents and then that? And the answer is no. You can't do that, apparently. The REST API doesn't allow you to do it that way because you probably have to have I don't know why, to be perfectly honest, but it doesn't allow it. So we're just going to delete that from here. And then this is the tenant settings that actually comes back. Now, it comes back in this form where you have this is a list in some cases, or, actually it is a list. That was a list. I had to expand it. Yeah, there it is, a list. Then I expand it to the record. Then I expand out the record into a name value type, because some of these things like the help, the Power BI help settings, there's additional little parameters you can specify. So how did I get these, right? Well, if you were watching the one I did on the Mastering PowerShell, great book. It's done. You have to go into PowerShell. You do a connect PowerShell service account. You're going to get your credentials, and then you go and invoke the same API. So, then I just redirect this out to a file, and then now I can just use a JSON document file, point it to there, and I can bring in all these settings. Now, I am going to release this out to my GitHub repository, and I'll just do that as part of this video. So I'm going to set this to include and report refresh. I'm going to turn that off. And so this is about as close as you're going to get to default tenant level settings. Because this is on my personal tenant that I use to make my videos and write my books. And I think the only thing I've changed on it on this one is I changed the publish to web. I think that's the only thing I changed on it. And I did was close and apply this. And I did create a calculated column. I could have done it in Power Query too, but is default, and this is really simple. It actually wants to show me. There we go. I just made it real simple. If published to web, no. Otherwise, yes. It's the only thing I can remember changing. So these should be basically all of your default settings. So if you want to compare, your tenant settings to this table, then you can see what you've changed or what's been changed, right? Maybe you've taken over a new Power BI tenant, you're managing it, and you want to see what's been changed since the defaults. This should help you get there. And it is kind of interesting looking at, it's not a ton of analytics you can get out of this or anything like that. But, right, so, the export, these are the groups. So they do come back with a group, and you can see the most groups, the most items are around export and sharing. So this is all whether you're allowed to export, what you're allowed to export to, or download reports, and all of that sort of fun stuff. Obviously, this needs to come out a little more. And, your integration settings, right? There's a lot of those. I guess I need to shrink those up. But, you can play around with it. I just threw this together apparently at some point, created a few metrics over here, measures. There's a lot of groups that just have one item in them, which I don't know why they just didn't throw those all into an other group or something like that. I guess, but they add tenant settings every day. So, maybe these will eventually have more than just one item in a group, which doesn't make sense to make it a group, but sure. And then there are some settings that allow security groups and others that do not. right? So certain things you're allowed to set, but most of them you're allowed to set a security group as far as like, hey, only people in this group are allowed to use this feature, or people in the security group are excluded from using this feature, but everybody else can. Sort of that sort of stuff. So I have this table here that you can review. But yeah, I mean that's really the long and the short of it of this video is the real value in this, and I'll go ahead and do it right now. Let me save this. Save. And then just so everybody can see me doing it and knows it's out there. That is not the right GitHub repository. This one. No, it's not that one. This one. This one. Well, it was either one of them. All right, so let me go ahead and add file, upload, choose my file. Yeah, so you can see this was the one that I started, the new one that I worked on, but this was the one I already had. So apparently at one point I had planned to do a tenant settings and video and then forgot about it. It didn't do it. So I'm glad I found it again. So yeah, there it is. It's out in the GitHub repository. You can go download it so you can see what the default settings are. And that's it. That's all I had for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you find it useful, and I'll see you next time.